Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here. In the video I did yesterday, kind of discussing Lane Norton's injuries and this whole idea of pushing your body past your limits and it not always being a good idea for everyone, sparked some interesting conversation down in the comments below. I'm going to link a few of those through the video, and some of them even came up on the Facebook fan page also. But a lot of people were basically like, well, if you want to be a champion, isn't it invariable that you're going to get some injuries, that you're going to have some problems? Doesn't that just go with the territory? And the answer is oftentimes it does, yes, but that isn't always the case. And let's really expound on that for a little bit and discuss individual risk to rewards. All right, here's the thing that you need to remember. We love to idolize champions. We love to idolize heroes. We love to idolize winners. And we should do that to some extent. That is not a bad thing for us as a society. It promotes people trying to achieve great things. It promotes people trying to do better. And I think if we look at it from that perspective, that's a very positive thing for us socially. We all should try to do better in something in our life. It doesn't have to be everything. It doesn't have to be a sport or anything else, but improving ourselves and doing better is a good thing for us as individuals. It's a good thing for us as a society. So I don't want people to think that I'm trying to say we shouldn't do that, because we should. And that is the positive side that comes out of these things, of watching champions and watching winners. It oftentimes inspires us personally to achieve more, to maybe reach our own potential in whatever that happens to be. And that's a fantastic thing. But the thing that you also have to weigh out with all of it is individual risk to reward ratios based upon your personal goals. And the thing that you need to remember, particularly when it comes to sport or performing art or anything, whether it's American football or powerlifting or bodybuilding or anything else, not everyone has the inherent genetic gifts to be number one. Not everyone has those things or to be a champion. Now, we could all improve from wherever we started. Yeah, absolutely. But the thing that you got to factor in, a lot of people are like, well, these champions are putting in all of this work, and yeah, they get hurt and injured, but they're winners still. And that's true. And that's their personal risk to reward, because the thing that happens is you increase training load and workload, volume, frequency, all of that over time, you have massively diminished returns. In other words, meaning putting in twice the work is not going to give you twice the results. Putting in 4 times the work is not going to give you 4 times the results. It's going to taper off very, very quickly. But a lot of people who are trying to be the best are willing to put in 50% more work if it will give them a 1% or a 2% competitive advantage, because in any sort of competitive environment, a 1% edge could be the difference between first and third place. It's enormous. So they're looking at it from that perspective. And if your goal is to be a champion and to win at any cost, you kind of have to look at things that way. But the other thing to consider is that as those things go up, risk doesn't always increase proportionately either. Risk can actually go up at a higher rate. In some cases, it can go up exponentially. Risk of injury, risk of downtime, or even risk of permanently crippling injuries. I mean, the injury could be anything from something minor that keeps you out of the gym for a week, a minor pull which sets back your progress, or for any sport you're training in general. Or injury could include, paralysis, being in a wheelchair the rest of your life. There are different extremes of that. But as workloads go up, rewards increase on a diminished returns, and risk of injury increase exponentially. And that's something you have to weigh out. And the thing that you need to remember is that I've seen guys in bodybuilding, powerlifting, everything else get seriously injured who were 12th place guys. They suffered debilitating injuries to be 12th place. I've seen bicep tears, I've seen pec tears, things like that in powerlifting by guys who weren't even going to walk away with a medal at that meet. Looking at their numbers and their qualifying totals going in, they were going to leave that meet without a medal at all. And they ripped a pec, they ripped a bicep. Same thing with competitive bodybuilders. Sure, you guys have Dorian Yates and you have Ronnie Coleman to look at as examples of these guys who did suffer numerous very serious injuries, but they were champions year after year after year. There are also guys in bodybuilding who can't even earn a pro card who had 4 or 5 major injuries, not to mention ever being at that level to where they're going to make actual money as a professional or be competing for big money or big trophies at some big event. There are guys who are just as messed up who aren't even professionals. They're still amateur level. They're not making any money at all doing it. So you need to understand is that because they didn't have necessarily the abilities, they tried to push as hard and beyond their limits with these higher risk training styles and workloads, but they didn't get their 10 seconds or their 1 year or their 3 years in the spotlight. They didn't get the trophies. They didn't get the medals. They weren't even winning. And now they're crippled and messed up or suffered debilitating injuries where they can't train anymore. And another factor to consider there too, what do we consider to be successful? Meaning, if we take Ronnie Coleman or Dorian Yates or any of these people who suffered these injuries and you say, yeah, they won 6, 7, 8 times, but they were already the best before they were getting a lot of these injuries. These injuries oftentimes started happening as they continued to progress with what they were doing. And what if they had just backed down a notch? What if they had just reeled it in 10 to 20% and continued to stay where they were or progress very, very slowly and continue to be the best? They might have won 10 times. They might have won 12 times without the injuries, without destroying their bodies. So there's another way to look at these things. And that's because, again, the mindset of many champions is to win at any cost. And sometimes winning at any cost doesn't just mean sacrifices in the future. It means not winning in the future because you've destroyed yourself trying to win the first 1, 2, or 3 times to the point to where you're so broken and beaten that eventually you can't continue to win anymore. You're sometimes trading future victories for that immediate win, that trophy, that medal right now. And the thing that a lot of guys have to look at this, when you're looking at these guys and their training methods to be the best, they're oftentimes taking tremendous risk for a 1 or a 2% advantage competitively. If you don't compete, you have to weigh out for yourself, because this is a free society. I can't tell you what's right or wrong. I can't put a moral figure on this. It doesn't make you a good or a bad person. It doesn't even make you an intelligent or a stupid person to weigh out your personal risk to rewards and decide what's right for you. That's an individual choice that you have to make, and you have to weigh out when you're looking at your training. Is it worth tearing a pec? Is it worth damaging a rotator cuff in your shoulder to where you're going to have to quit training when you're 30 the way that you want to train, or 35 or maybe 25, trying to get that extra half inch of pec, that extra half inch of bicep right now when you don't compete? And maybe you're training for different reasons. Maybe you're training just to look better. Maybe you're training to improve your confidence, to improve your mood because you just like to work out. Maybe you're training because you want to attract girls or guys. Whatever your preference happens to be, maybe that's what you're doing. And you know what? At the end of the day, that's okay. If that's why you want to train, at least you're in the gym training and suffering and getting the benefits, the side benefits of health and everything else, even though that's your other goal. I can't really knock that at the end of the day. So, okay, that's your goal. Well, if you damage a rotator cuff or you damage a hip or whatever else, and you're trying to do this to pursue the opposite sex, certain sex positions are going to be harder. You're paying a cost of you're injuring yourself just trying to get laid, and then you're going to make it harder to actually have sex sometimes. And that's, again, a funny way to look at it. But in some cases, that might actually be what's happening. That might be what you're doing, just trying to get that little bit extra. And what you have to weigh out, is that really worth it? Do you really think that the girl or the guy that you're trying to attract, that extra half inch of pectoral or that extra 1/4 inch of bicep peak is really going to make you or break you in their eyes as far as attracting them? Just something to consider there, guys. It probably isn't. So as long as you go in and you're fit and you're using your physique to impress other people and attract them, as long as you're pretty fit and healthy and look better than the average person, you've already got a foot in the door there. If that's your goal, if that's what you're doing, you don't have to push yourself to the absolute limits for that. You don't have to put yourself at risk for that. If you choose to do so, hey, that's your own choice, but you should at least consider, is that extra risk worth the reward you're going to get? You may not get any reward from it at all. In fact, you probably won't, other than your personal well-being and peace of mind. And hey, there are people out there that have to do that. A lot of people need to feel like they're giving 100% for their own self-worth. And I get that. But you need to also ask yourself on that, are you doing that because that's what you personally need? And if it is, then all right, do what you have to do. I mean, we have to feel complete and fulfilled as people in order to be happy. Or are you doing it because other people have told you that's what you have to do? Have some people on a forum told you have to do that? Have you watched a fitness YouTuber and they told you that, if you don't go hard as fuck all the time, that you're lazy and you shouldn't feel good about yourself, or you're not going to get girls, or whatever it happens to be. And if that's the reason you're doing it, that's not a good reason. You're just risking injury to impress other people, or to appeal to the ideals of other people who don't care about you in any way. They're just marketing something to you, or they're just part of an anonymous group of forum goers on an internet. If you're doing this for you personally, for your own personal fulfillment and your own personal quality of life, then make sure that that actually is the reason, and that hasn't really been influenced by other people who've made that decision for you. You got to make your own decisions. And because at the end of the day, guys, most of us train for whatever reason we train, whether it's recreational or health, or whether you compete in something, we all do this to improve our quality of life and to feel better in some way. That's the real reason. Ultimately, our motivations for all of this, whether you compete in something or not, is to feel better in some way. It is to improve your quality of life. And what you have to weigh out as an individual risk factor, I can't do this for you, is the risk that you're taking with whatever style of training that you're putting in worth the rewards that you're going to glean in terms of your quality of life? Because really, that is ultimately what it's all about. The improving quality of life, and you have to weigh out the risks that you're going to take and how those could negatively affect your quality of life versus the quality of life that you know you're going to get from doing it that way. And that's a very personal thing. There is no right or wrong answer. Only you can decide that. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.